Once I made this decision prayerfully, one of my mother's best friends in El Paso helped me access the abortion I could not get in California. When my mother told her what was going on, she told my mother to send me to her in El Paso because she knew of a good, competent, and compassionate doctor, yes, who had a back alley clinic in Mexico. She was kind and loving, took me to Mexico to have a DNC abortion procedure. Remember, I just turned 16.
A deeply personal story shared right there by Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California, her own private story just this past September during a House Oversight hearing. And the Congresswoman joins us tonight. Congresswoman, you were the first person I wanted to call to join us this evening. First of all, what was it like for you? What did it take for you to be willing to share a story so personal? And now here you are tonight, possibly having to think about all these American women who might have to take that same trip you did so many years ago.
Stephanie, you know, I didn't talk about having an abortion because that was my right and that was my decision, just as it should be right now. And it is, because abortions are still legal. And I hope young people who, again, have appointments to get an abortion understand that they're still legal. But then let me tell you, my mother told me, she said, look, I'll help you, whatever decision you make, but it's no one's business. It's your private decision. So you don't need to talk about it unless you want to. Well, I chose not to talk about it. But now, once all of these horrible cases started coming down, I felt compelled. I could not keep quiet. I had to tell the truth about what happened to me. I had to sound the alarm because let me tell you, in the 60s, abortions were not safe. They were not legal. The deaths of the majority of Black women during that period were from septic abortions. I was one who survived. My mother's friend, who just passed away, quite frankly, made sure that I had a safe abortion. It wasn't legal. It was back alley. And I'm so worried now. And it's very, this triggers so much personal pain for me because not only am I angry, I'm heartbroken because I know what I went through and I know what young people are going to go through. Most of our young people, they don't know a life without Roe. And this is, it's crucial that we understand that this is a political decision. The leaked, unfortunate, sinister opinion that was leaked, that if it is true, that we have to organize, and elect candidates who are going to support a woman's right to privacy and to make sure that her own body becomes her own body once again. Because right now, these decisions are being made by lawmakers and Supreme Court justices who have nothing to do with a woman's bodily autonomy.
They might not have anything to do with it, but they do make these decisions. And if this draft does become an official decision, if it's held, then what? What does organizing do?
Well, first of all, we have the Women's Health Protection Act that the House passed, led by my colleague, Congresswoman Judy Chu, who saw this coming. It's in the Senate now. And so right now, we need to be organizing and making sure that the Senate passes the Women's Health Protection Act, because we have to codify the right to women's, the Roe versus Wade, into federal law. That's the first thing. Secondly, we have to make sure that people are educated about the impact of decisions, voting for the president, in terms of a president having the authority to appoint people to the Supreme Court who make decisions that impact one's daily lives. We have to educate the public about voter participation and civic engagement, because otherwise we're going to end up with it looks like we're going to end up now, because Donald Trump was elected as president. And so this is, Stephanie, it's a matter of racial justice, because women who have money and majority, of women who don't have money or who are low income or Black and brown women, they don't have the resources to travel to other states like women with money have. And so this is, again, women are going to have abortions regardless. What concerns me now is they're not going to be safe if they're going to be illegal. And so I'm terrified of the precedent that this is setting also, because the next ban they're going to create is a ban on birth control. And so this is a slippery slope. And we have to really wake up now and do everything we can do to get the Women's Health Protection Act passed in the Senate.
Could you possibly get that done on a bipartisan way now? I mean, not all Republicans support this. There's a whole lot of Republicans tonight, especially those who represent swing districts, swing states, who are not feeling good about this.
There are a lot of Republican women out there, Stephanie, who believe that they should have the right to make their own health care decisions. A lot of Republican women, right? So it's up to them. It's up to everyone who believes in women's equality, women's reproductive justice, to step up and insist that their senators vote to pass the Women's Health Care Act. It's just critically important that they step up now and do that, because this is not only affecting Black and brown women, it's not only affecting women who are registered Democrats, this is affecting all women, Republican women also. And so they need to understand that they're young people. And I have 3 granddaughters. I don't want them to have to deal with what we're dealing with now and what I had to deal with in the 60s in terms of having to have an unsafe or illegal abortion. And so, yes, Republican women need to let their senators know this impacts them also, and that they're going to hold them accountable at the polls. Because in a democracy, that's what this is all about, right? It's holding your elected officials accountable. And so that's what has to happen right now.
It's going to impact all Americans. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Congresswoman Barbara Lee.